Let me introduce you to your new defense against the dark arts teacher. Me.
What do you think would be the coolest and most useful class to take at Hogwarts? That's what I will be ranking today, from my least favorite to most favorite class based on a variety of different things. But that's enough yapping from me, let's get started.
What exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
In last place at number 13, I have Muggle Studies. You know this had to be the class that comes in last. Can you imagine going to Hogwarts and you get enrolled in Muggle Studies? Like, in the wizarding world, Muggles are so irrelevant. Like, Arthur Weasley I said his name wrong, but he specializes in Muggles, and he barely even gets close to correct when talking about them. I imagine the class would not only be boring, but pretty factually incorrect most of the time. It would be so hard not correcting the professor every time they said something outlandish, like planes fly with a different kind of magic, or that alpacas are often ridden into battle. I feel like the class would constantly be boring and incorrect, and it would drive me crazy. It would be so hard keeping your facts straight compared to what you've learned. The only upside to a class like Muggle Studies would be the potential for slow days. Imagine the teacher pushing in a TV on a stand, and the teacher decides that today is the day you learn about Bill Nye or the Magic School Bus. That is the only time this class would be enjoyable.
In today's lesson, we will cover a truly thrilling event.
At number 12, I have the history of magic. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy learning about history. Heck, a lot of my YouTube channel has to do with history, but I can't imagine this class is interesting at all. For one, the professor, because a lot of these I'm looking at as if I was Harry's age going in at the same time as him, so he has the same professors. But that professor's Professor Binns. He's a ghost that is so bland that when he died of old age, while teaching, he just kept teaching and no one really cared or told him to stop. I don't know, I find it really weird. I don't care about goblin rebellions and dragon treaties, especially compared to all the cool classes you could take at Hogwarts. I don't care to learn about the incredibly expansive history of the wizarding world because, honestly, there's just way too much to learn. I really feel like it's such a waste of time when you could be learning new spells and how to defend yourself. In our world, it's important to learn about history, so we don't repeat it. But in this world, there's just too much history to learn about, and it's so broad that it would be nearly impossible for anything to truly repeat. So the history of magic is slightly higher than Muggle Studies on this list, because while it would be more useful than learning about the invention of the plunger, it couldn't possibly be any more useful than the rest of the classes on today's ranking.
Now, ancient runes. That's a fascinating subject.
At number 11, I have the study of ancient runes. So this class is only slightly better in my mind than the history of magic. I had to do a little research to even understand what a class is, and essentially it's the study of translating ancient runes. Who would have thought? This to me is like being a paleontologist digging up dinosaur bones rather than someone who just studies their findings. This is why I have it higher than the history of magic. I think not only learning to read an ancient language, but also uncovering unknown history is much more valuable than hearing stories about people who've already done this. I think this is much more of a practical class, especially for anyone who's actually interested in ancient runes or anything it entails. If you study the history of magic, you have more limited opportunities, especially if Binns just stays on forever. So while this is one of my bottom 3 classes, I would want to take it, and I still think it's much more cool and practical than both the history of magic with Casper the Boring Ghost teaching and Muggle Studies where you learn is just, like, it's just as incorrect as reading a post from a conspiracy Facebook group, in my opinion. It's the best of these 3, I guess. At number 10, I have Astronomy. Okay, so I know this one is higher on the list than most people would think, but I love space and stars. This one isn't quite as practical as the other classes, but I don't know, like, that's why it's not as high as the other classes, but this would still be fun and interesting to me. For one, imagine how amazing and advanced the telescopes and other equipment would be with the help of magic. You could see aliens on the face of Mars with those. It would be very interesting seeing how planets and other heavenly bodies move. The big downside of this class would be the amount of people who took it on accident thinking it was astrology. You'd be asked what your sign is more than a confusing billboard, and that would get pretty annoying. But other than that, this class, and it not being super practical, I don't know. I still think I would really enjoy astronomy.
Good morning, everyone.
At number 9, I have Herbology. So I'm not a huge fan of gardening or plants, but I am aware how helpful Herbology would be in real life. For example, Neville giving Harry gillyweed is the only way he was able to breathe underwater for the second task of the Triwizard Tournament. Also, in the second movie when all the students were getting petrified, it was the Herbology department that came to help. Another great thing about Herbology is how underrated and unstudied it seems to be. Like, it should have been common knowledge that stuff like gillyweed existed, but not even Hermione had any idea about it. I think it would be so incredibly helpful to get very good at Herbology. It also seems to be a pretty rare thing for people to get really interested and really good at it. Neville is the only one we ever saw that got super into magical plants. So I think this would be a rare and invaluable skill to train and hone in this world, which is why I have Herbology higher than most people probably would. At number 8, I have Care for Magical Creatures. So while it would be really helpful to learn about different creatures in the magical world, there is one thing that holds me back from this. I'm a wuss. I would be pretty darn scared to have to deal with giants, dragons, or hippogriffs. Like, I realize it would be important to have this knowledge about them, but I would be terrified. It's not at the bottom of the list because I realize how valuable it is, but I don't know. If I have the ability to avoid all these creatures, I will. That's just how it is. Also, with how it was in the series, I don't want Hagrid to be my teacher. I know he loves all the animals and creatures, and he's a beloved character in the series, but he was not a very safe teacher. He was an okay teacher because he's able to teach kids about super cool subjects, and I don't know, he really cared about it, but it was a miracle none of his students ever got killed. He always seemed to assume they were all as tough as his half-giant self. But overall, I see why many people would take this class, and I see why it'd be very helpful to learn about caring for different creatures. But this just would not be the class for me.
2, 3, Ferraverto.
At number 7, I have Transfiguration. Turning something into something else would be an incredibly valuable thing to learn in the wizarding world. It would also seemingly help you if you wanted to become an animagus as well, which would be amazing. I think this class would be one of the more educational courses at Hogwarts. Most of that is because it's taught by one of the goats, McGonagall. She's a bit strict, but I don't know, she's the best no-nonsense teacher in the entire school, in my opinion. So if you went into her class ready to change your shoe into a block of cheese, you damn well be sure it's going to happen. Imagine the possibilities with this magic as well. You can change just about anything into anything else. You can create life, essentially, with Transfiguration. There's really no limit to this magic aside from how hard you're willing to train and work at it. All that being said, this is still only the middle of the list. That's mostly because the rest of the skills and classes are even better than Transfiguration, in my opinion. But Transfiguration is absolutely an awesome skill that you could learn.
Stick your right hand over the broom and say up.
At number 6, I have Flying. I think flying is probably one people would usually have in their top 3, and I get it. But there's something from earlier in the video that you need to remember. I'm a big wuss. To be more specific, I'm so scared of heights, and I even get motion sickness pretty easily. I realize that flying would be really important in the magical world, almost like driver's education in the Muggle world, but I'm confident that there are plenty of other ways that I could get where I need to go with magic and not need a broom. And from what I've seen of the flying class, it kind of depends on the user if you're able to fly well at all. So it may take a lot of effort from some people to learn it, or you could be like Harry and spend 20 seconds on a broom and fly like a pro. And if you're not immediately good at it, it would be pretty frustrating. So I would learn to fly in the class, but the second another way of transportation becomes available to me, which will happen later in this list, I would use that instead. Though I did sports in high school, there is no chance I'd be trying out for Quidditch anytime soon.
You have the Grim.
At number 5, I have Divination / Arithmancy. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I'm sorry. Now I put these two together because they really go hand in hand. This is mainly because Arithmancy helps with Divination. That's all I'll talk about with Arithmancy, though, because I don't fully understand it and I obviously can't even pronounce it. But of course Divination would be one of my top 5 classes. Imagine being able to see into the future even just a little bit. This could protect you from harm, predict disasters worldwide, and most importantly, maybe help you gamble. If you're deciding whether you should go out to the casino or not, you can try to see if it looks good. Maybe your future's a little better. I don't know. And while I'm joking about it, it would be very beneficial to you financially. Because I imagine if I'm a wizard, I'm going to be living in the Muggle world and just making bank. I never understood why the Weasleys were such a poor family when they could just live in the Muggle world as kings, essentially, and be incredibly wealthy. All that being said, I would use divination to buy stocks and get out before they drop. I'm not exactly sure how accurate divination is in this world, but I'm willing to give it a try and make a little bit of money from it. And, you know what, I could also keep my loved one safe, which is pretty cool.
Explosion in this room.
At number 4, I have potions. Potions, in a lot of ways, reminds me of herbology. It's something that not everyone really gets, but it is incredibly useful when you're good at it. Like, we've seen potions heal people, change their appearance, and even give them luck, which is insane. I truly think that if you got good at potions, you could be damn near unstoppable. One big drawback would be having someone like Snape as your teacher. He's a dick, and I unfortunately would have a hard time not speaking up about him being a dick. But other than that, the possibilities are genuinely endless. And what we see in the books and movies is literally what they teach the students how to make. Imagine being a pro, like Snape or Slughorn, and just being able to create just about anything. Also, Harry didn't like potions, so I bet there's a lot more stuff that he never even, wasn't even mentioned in the book because he wasn't paying attention. Imagine what you could do that he just never even saw. The one that always blows my mind more than anything is liquid luck. If you're able to brew that successfully and you could essentially just make sure all your days go your way, I don't know. I can't imagine being lucky whenever I want to be, even if it's probably pretty hard to brew, to be fair, and probably has some rare ingredients. But I truly think Harry missed out a lot in potions because the possibilities are just honestly endless.
In the kitchen. No! Just because you're allowed to use magic now.
At number 3, I have Apparition. This one should be obvious after my other picks. I don't want to ride a broom or fly just about anywhere because I'm afraid of heights. I'm also too scared to ride a hippogriff or other magical creatures for similar reasons. So it makes sense that I'd have to figure out a good way for me to get to point A to point B. Apparition seems to be the best solution in my eyes. Being able to travel just about anywhere I want is amazing. I'd love to be able to day trip to Ireland, but at the end of the day, sleep in my own bed. I think Apparition is truly such an unbelievable power. I've always wanted to be able to afford to travel where I want, and with this, I would never have that problem again. I said that learning how to ride a broom was like getting your driver's license earlier, but I'd say this is probably a more accurate comparison. I also love that you could bring other people with you when you apparate. So it's just like not limited to you moving from place to place, you could bring other people and things and stuff like that. This would probably be the class that I focus the most on in school because being able to go wherever you want is just such an amazing and powerful skill to have.
Ridiculous!
This class is ridiculous.
Very good.
At number 2, I have Defense Against the Dark Arts. Now that I'm down to the top 2, I can admit that I actually just swapped the places of this class and the one I put at 1 right before writing this. I decided that Defense Against the Dark Arts is slightly less important than my number 1 pick. But all that being said, I would love this class. Learning how to properly defend yourself and learn such a cool skill and useful spells would be incredible. Especially in the wizarding world, you'd need you'd need to defend yourself at some point. Like, whether it's from scary creatures or just evil wizards, you will need these skills. Learning how to use such powerful and strong spells would certainly help you in the real world quite a bit. And if you're looking at it through the lens of going to school and Harry Potter did, it'd be important to defend yourself against Death Eaters. Probably the biggest drawback from the class when looking through the same lenses being when Harry Potter went, was that the teaching position was cursed. And not only that, but most of the teachers they had either sucked or were just straight up evil. So not only did you have a new teacher every single year trying to restart teaching you, but there's like a 50% chance they may try to kill a student while you're there. According to the numbers I learned in arithmancy, I don't like those odds. But this would still be an amazing class to take and incredibly valuable skill to learn.
And enunciate. Wingardium Leviosa. Off you go then.
At number 1, I have Charms. By process of elimination, you probably realize that Charms is the only one left. This is the one class with no drawbacks that I could think of. Not only are you learning from one of the best teachers in the school, Flitwick, but you're also learning all the cool magical spells you've always wanted to learn. Making things float, making water appear, making things come to you, and making things invisible. Those are just some of the amazing things you could learn with Charms. Charms is the most practical class in the entire school. Getting really good at Charms is like getting a general studies degree in college, but in a good way. You learn how to do all the things that really make you a wizard. I told you before that I had this below Defense Against the Dark Arts at first, But then I thought about one thing and it helped me decide I'm going to spend a whole lot more of my life making things float and trying to Accio things to me than fighting anything. So Charms is the very best class to take to get really good at general magic. In my opinion, and like, I don't know, it would be the first class I'd want to take if I ever got to Hogwarts. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment below what class you'd take the first chance you got, because I'm curious. I heard my friends recently, and it was interesting. All 3 of hers were different than mine, which is really cool. But other than that, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.